Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to be covering questions and answers that were left on my community tab page. We're going to be covering everything from stimulus bills, stimulus checks, unemployment insurance, EIDL, PPP loans, the recession, and questions for me personally. I try to consolidate all of the questions that I could to my best of my ability, but I may have missed a few. So if I did, please leave them in the comments below. Or if you just have any questions at all, just leave them in the comments and I will do my best to respond to every single one. Just so you know, my name is Kevin Conway. I make personal finance videos all the time and give updates on the newest stimulus bill proposals. So if you want to stay informed, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if this video helped you out in any way, be sure to give a like to the video. Now let's jump right into it. All right, so starting off, the first question asks, when are we going to have another stimulus bill? Well, frankly, nobody knows for certain, but there is a lot of political movement right now to get another stimulus measure done. But I think it won't come in the form of a stimulus check. President Trump and Congress are a lot more amenable to helping out businesses and giving payroll tax incentives as opposed to an actual check to individuals. So what will this look like? Well, a payroll tax incentive will be a holiday on your payroll tax that you as an employee will pay. So 7.5% of everyone's paycheck, and you can see this on your paycheck all the time, goes to FICA, will not be discounted anymore, and you will get to keep that money. That's a 7.5% boost to you. I think that is most likely to happen. But this doesn't mean you're out of luck if you don't have a job. You can take advantage of unemployment insurance, which has been greatly expanded, and I'm going to talk about that later in the video. Next question has to do with child support and the stimulus check. And the law is pretty clear in this one. If you owe child support, the IRS will take your stimulus check and apply whatever amount that you owe in child support to that stimulus check and give you the rest. If you owe more than the stimulus check is going to be given to you, then they're going to take that full amount. So when are paper checks for the stimulus check supposed to be mailed? Well, they've already actually begun rolling out now, and you should start seeing checks for the lowest income earners this week, the first week of May, and it's going to roll out over the next 20 weeks. So that's 5 months. That's why it's so important to use the IRS portal to enter your information so you can get direct deposit as quickly as possible. And for the stimulus check, it doesn't matter if you've never worked before, you still will get a stimulus check. So what happens if you had a kid in 2020? When do you get the $500? Well, that actually happened to me, and I expect to get that $500 when I file my 2020 tax return. I didn't get that $500 on my stimulus check for this year because the IRS used my information from 2019. In order to get that $500, your kid must be below the age of 17 in the year in which you filed your taxes with the IRS. So that's 2019. Your kid must have not been 17 years old at any period of time in that year. All right, let's move on to unemployment insurance. And this has been a point of consternation for a lot of people dealing with the state unemployment offices and trying to get through in order to get their benefits. A lot of people have struggled, but don't worry, help is on the way and things are moving forward. One of the questions I got was, what do I do if I am eligible for the unemployment insurance in the CARES Act? For example, if I'm an independent contractor or I just had my benefits expire and I want to recertify to get the extended benefits, but my state doesn't allow me to do that online. What am I supposed to do? Well, the short answer is you have to wait until your state actually has the portal set up for you to actually go through and apply again. But fortunately, states, for example, like California, have begun to roll out these new portals. Now, remember, the CARES Act greatly expanded unemployment insurance and covered a lot more people, like independent contractors, gig workers, self-employed individuals, those sorts of people who previously were not eligible for unemployment insurance. And as such, states had to go and make a brand new portal for all of these people to process this information. So that's a short way of saying states are simply behind. Another question that I get often is, I received my $600 unemployment insurance, but I did not get back pay for that $600 for every week that I was owed. What's the deal with that? Well, like I said, states are implementing all of this on the fly. They're building their portals right away. So while you may have received that $600 for 1 week, you are certainly owed back pay all the way from the time that you originally lost your job up until a certain point around the end of March for most states. And as a result, it'll actually take you a few more weeks in order to get caught up and get all of that back pay because states are implementing this in their systems now, and they're doing their best to actually get all this integrated right away. But just rest assured, know that within a few weeks, you should expect to get all of that back pay. One person asked, are part-time workers eligible for unemployment insurance under the CARES Act? And the answer is absolutely yes, they are. If you've lost your job and it was a part-time job, you were still eligible for unemployment insurance. And it doesn't actually matter if you would make more money on unemployment insurance than you would have at your part-time job. I got another question that said, I'm a part-time worker and I actually work seasonally. I sell food at festivals on a seasonal basis. What am I? Am I a gig worker, self-employed? Do I work for the festival? And am I eligible for unemployment insurance? Well, the short answer is you probably are an independent contractor, and you probably are eligible for unemployment insurance if you cannot do your job now as a result of the pandemic. And when in doubt, the best thing you could do is just apply with your state's unemployment office. There's no harm in applying, and applying with truthful information. If you get denied, then you get denied. But if you get accepted and you put information that was truthful, you are going to be in a good position. Now, do I think unemployment insurance will be expanded? As I led off with the video, I do actually think unemployment insurance will be expanded past July 31st, where it is set to expire now, until a few months afterwards if we are still in this economic rut, which it looks like we probably will be. To recap, your state unemployment is already expanded all the way until the end of the year. All of those rules apply for your state unemployment now, and you are eligible to get 13 additional weeks on top of your state unemployment insurance, which is about 39 weeks in most states. But that unemployment and pandemic unemployment insurance of $600 per week is the part that I think will be expanded past July 31st, where it is currently set to expire. And there's precedent for this. We actually did this during the 2008 to 2010 recession, where we expanded unemployment insurance benefits. Now, it wasn't anywhere remotely close to as generous as the pandemic unemployment insurance of $600 per week, but there is precedent for expanding unemployment insurance during tough economic times. Another person asked, if they get unemployment insurance, do they have to pay it back or do they have to pay taxes on it? Well, it's not a loan, so you don't have to pay it back. You could spend it on whatever you want, it's cash to you, but you do have to pay taxes on it. That's because it supplements the income that you lost and acts like a wage replacement. And wages you have to pay taxes on. What if you are not approved for state unemployment insurance? Can you get the federal $600 pandemic unemployment insurance per week? And the short answer is no, you can't. You have to get approved by your state for unemployment insurance, and the federal government is going to pay your state that additional $600 for you only if your state determines if you were actually qualified as unemployed. What about essential workers? Do they get hazard pay or any additional benefits? And the answer is no, you don't. You only get the wages that you get from your job. And as of right now, there's no hazard pay legislation on the books that is going to pass, but things may change. So stay informed, subscribe to the channel if you want to stay informed with the latest developments. Moving on to EIDL and PPP loans. A quick recap of the two is that they both provide employers additional benefits and additional forgivable loans to an extent to keep staff and to keep their businesses running. So somebody asked, can I get EIDL and unemployment insurance? And the answer on that one is probably not. And they asked the same thing with PPP and unemployment insurance. And the answer on that is clearly not. And the reason is because PPP is Paycheck Protection Program, and you get that loan in order to keep your payroll going. Now, if you're your own employer and your payroll is yourself and you're getting a loan that is forgivable from the government to keep your payroll going, you cannot both get payroll and unemployment insurance at the same time because you wouldn't be unemployed then. Now, the EIDL is a little bit more of a gray area, and that is an advance that you can get between $1,000 and $10,000 that is forgivable, and you could use not only on payroll but other goods as well. And it is not clear in the law, but I would say that you are better off not getting EIDL and unemployment insurance because you might violate your unemployment insurance benefits. What about if you applied for the EIDL loan and the application that you put together had bank information for somebody who wasn't on the loan? Are you able to actually get the funds processed? And the answer is probably not. Probably works the exact same way as a tax return. The name on your tax return needs to match your bank account. I imagine the name on your EIDL application needs to match the bank account that it is going into. So what about this EIDL application? I heard that it was shut down. Well, the answer on that is you're kind of right. I made a video on it going into detail, but here's what you need to know. Congress allocated a certain amount of money, $60 billion, to the EIDL on the stimulus round number 2. Now, the EIDL applications were so swamped on the first round that the SBA actually said, we don't have any more room for people to apply on this round 2 because we have a big backlog from round 1. As a result, we're going to close the portal for at least several weeks to process all those initial applications and then move on to the new applications. And as a result, if you're looking to apply for the EIDL, as of right now, you cannot do it. But things may change, so be sure to subscribe and stay informed. I'll bring you the latest news on the EIDL application portal when it opens up again, if it opens up again. Another person asked, I'm self-employed, but I don't have an LLC. Can I get the EIDL application? And yes, absolutely you can. You're a sole proprietor and you qualify for the EIDL under any of the interpretations of the law. You qualify as a sole proprietor. And another person asked, they and their spouse are part of a company that they started together, which employs a few different people. How much can they get from the EIDL application? And the answer is $1,000 per employee. Now, you and your spouse are employees of the business that you own, plus whatever employees you have as well. Add up all those people, and it can go as high as $10,000. Moving on to more general matters having to do with the economy. Now, what are my thoughts there? I got a lot of great questions, so let's run through them. The first question, which I've gotten many times, is we're printing all of this money. Should we be worried about inflation? And the answer is kind of, but not that much. Now, I know this seems counterintuitive, but let me explain. Generally speaking, if we print money, that would, all else constant, of course, lead to inflation, but that's only one side of the coin. Inflation is generally thought to be a result of two factors: demand pull and cost push. What is demand pull? Well, this is basically increased demand that leads to higher inflation. So of course, if you have lower rates, which the Fed is doing, they're printing more money, more people have more money, you're going to create more demand for the goods that are available in the marketplace. So for example, if interest rates are 10% for a mortgage, not many people could afford a home, therefore there wouldn't be as much demand. But if interest rates are 3%, a whole lot more people are now eligible to actually buy that home, and as a result, demand will have gone up. That is what the Fed is trying to do when they lower interest rates. They're trying to create demand. Now, like I said, that's only one side of the coin, so what's the other side? The other side is known as cost push. Now, this is basically where the costs of the goods themselves actually go up. The inputs lead to higher costs on the goods themselves. So take, for example, labor costs. If labor costs go up, then whatever that labor is producing is also going to have to go up in price in order to compensate for that. Think of a fast food stand. If all of a sudden the employees were paid double what they're currently being paid, then certainly you would have to increase the cost of the burgers and fries that you're selling in order to make the same amount of money. Now here's where a recession comes into play. Of course, during a recession, when you have something like 30 million people now unemployed, you're going to have a scenario where labor costs are not going to increase as much as they have in the past, simply because there's so many more people unemployed. There's a lot of slack in the system. A lot more people are willing to take jobs for lower pay in order to get a job at all. Now, these two competing factors are going to be things to watch over time, but the Fed has stated in clear and definite terms that they will raise interest rates if we see inflation rise a whole lot. And as a result, raising interest rates is going to dampen demand and therefore control inflation. That's what you want to watch for. I'm not saying it's something to totally dismiss, but as of right now, I don't anticipate there to be a tremendous amount of inflation in the future, simply because you're looking at these two different factors as they interplay with one another. But frankly, that's just my opinion, and it's an incredibly difficult question to answer, and it is something to just keep in mind and keep track of. So what are my thoughts about the residential real estate market? Do I anticipate a crash in the residential real estate market as a result of the pandemic? And my short answer is not really. I anticipate there being a little bit softer demand, closings taking a little bit longer, prices in certain markets decreasing a little or just staying flat in others, but I don't actually see a crash coming, and here's why. We have a lot of recency bias. Of course, the last recession we went in was caused by housing, and as a result, everyone thinks that during a recession, housing prices must crash too, but that's simply not borne out by the historical evidence over the last several decades, over the last century even. In fact, Zillow did a study and they determined that during times of pandemic, real estate prices actually don't really crash. They don't really go down by very much at all. And in some markets, they actually stay the same or even increase. Now, why is that? Well, during pandemics, you don't exactly want to pack all of your stuff and move around. Think about it right now. Everybody is sheltering in place. Nobody's doing anything. No one's buying a home, no one's selling a home. And as a result, there's no transactions, and the prices of the real estate are not actually being borne out with real world data. And as a result, you don't really know what the real estate prices are doing because there are no prices. Nobody's buying or selling anything. And as a result, nothing is really changing in the prices of real estate. And coupled with this, the fact that so many people have said, I am waiting until there is a decrease in prices before I buy a home. How many times have you heard that? I certainly have thought that, and many other people as well. But everybody thinks that, and as a result, when prices do start to fall, you're gonna see a lot of people go into the market and buy that home that they've been willing to buy for a long time, but for the price. As a result, you're going to see prices stabilize. Even if they drop a little, there's going to be buyers in the market. That's at least my opinion. Also, interest rates are lower than they've really kind of ever been before. And if you could borrow money for 30 years at less than 3.5%, that's very, very cheap, and people are going to take advantage of that one way or another. So moving on to personal questions about me. So I am flattered that any of you would want to know anything about me personally, but let's just start off with some of the important ones. Are you a tall, skinny, white guy? Well, yeah, I actually am. I'm about 6'5", and I'm certainly really white, so that answer is absolutely yes. The next question asks, what is the deal? I'm a lawyer, but I make personal finance videos. How did you get into personal finance, and why didn't you just become a financial advisor or an accountant in order to actually just get into this field? And the answer is, well, I think law can actually give you a unique lens in the world of finance that accounting and regular finance generally cannot. And here's what I mean. I work in real estate development, and in real estate development, you need lawyers at basically every turn. You need them to negotiate contracts, to review debt documents, to structure equity agreements, to look at land use, and you need all of this in order to actually make a deal work. And I always thought if I become an attorney, I'll be a little bit better at this than I would have been otherwise. Additionally, I just like personal finance a whole lot. It's something that I've been interested in for a very, very long time, ever since I was a little kid. Money is so great, not because I'm really desirous of buying a lot of fancy things, but because it is an indicator of people's choices. It is an intersection of everything you could think of. It is politics, it is demographics, it is choice, it is necessity. It is where money determines where we live, what we do, what we drive, what we eat, and basically how we carry ourselves through the world. It matters so much to so many people. And I wanted to start a channel that actually educated people about personal finance, because I always felt that we didn't do a good job in school teaching people about personal finance. And YouTube is a free way to actually just spread it. And I'm really glad that this channel has grown, because it means more people are getting into finance than they would have otherwise. And while some people say finance is really boring, I totally disagree, because finance isn't just numbers on a screen. It is real world action. It matters tremendously. And in times of economic recession, we could see that better than just about anything else. And the last question asks if I would consider doing any sort of consulting, one-on-one consulting. And let me just say that I'm really flattered by the idea that somebody would even ask me for that. So thank you, first off. And secondly, I think it's great that people want to learn more about finance, and I'm happy to respond to any comments or emails or even direct messages on Instagram to the best of my ability. But as of right now, I just had a newborn child about 10 weeks ago, and when I'm not talking in front of a camera by myself, I'm changing a poopy diaper. So there's not a whole lot of time that I have, but I really enjoy making these videos and interacting with as many people as possible. So when I have a little more time, maybe that's something I'll explore. But as of right now, I'm just honored by that suggestion. So that's about all. If I missed any of your questions at all, be sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to respond to them. And be sure to give a like to this video if it helped you out in any way. I hope that I answered the questions that were left on my community tab, so thank you for leaving them. With all of that being said, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.